for 11th Canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapters 11 and 12. Oh, sorry, 18 and 19. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatra Dharana Paraha Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. We'd like to thank you for joining today's session. Chapter 18, we start with description of Varnashram-dharma. Yesterday we heard how Krishna is explaining to Uddhava about Varnashram-dharma. And here he is continuing his explanation, especially for Vanaprastha and the Sannyas ashram. Krishna says that, for 25 years, brahmachari. For 25 to 50 years, grihastha. 50 to 75 years, vanaprastha. 75 and later is sannyas ashram. So one who is taking the vanaprastha stage of life, what should they do? Said one should leave his wife at home in the care of his sons, or else take her along. That option is also there for vanaprastha. And if a peaceful mind and someone, and now with a peaceful mind, because all responsibilities are done, the sons have probably been raised properly, and they are self-dependent, And now they can go to the forest. Vanaprastha, prasthan to Vana. In Kali Yuga, generally, a human being does not live more than 100 years. And then this rate is decreasing as well. Now, one who is wanting to live for 100 years, at age of 50, they may adopt Vanaprastha. Krishna explaining to Uddhava. And 75, sannyas. Now, very few people, they live for 100 years nowadays, so one should adjust the schedule accordingly. Ultimately, the purpose being Vanaprastha is for gradual transition from materialistic family life to complete renunciation. Rather than immediately renouncing and then going into a panic zone and then coming back, giving up sannyas, that's not good. So go to Vanaprastha stage. And then when he goes to the Van, he goes to the forest, one should accept food, whatever is available, fruits, roots that grow in the forest, sometimes some grains which are cooked by fire, and sometimes fruits, but naturally ripened fruits. Then what should he wear? He should wear tree bark, grass, leaves, or the skin of a deer. He can wear also a dead deer, already dead deer. One should not kill for such a thing. One can perform austerities, not cut one's hair, not cut one's beard, not cut one's nails, and then not also remove dirt from the limbs, not do like this as well. Just let the dirt pile up. But one can take bath. One should take bath 3 times in cold water and sleep on the ground. But then if some dirt comes, don't try to, remove the dirt. Then, if it is hot during the summer season, then one should stand under the blazing sun, surrounded by fires blazing on all sides. That's the austerity a Vanaprastha must do. During rainy season, one should stand right below the rain. In one sense, it's quite fun. But when we get sick, it is not. But a Vanaprastha is supposed to do that. Cold winter, he should submerge himself in the water up to his neck, just as an austerity. And this austerity has a lot of meaning, we'll see later. One should not clean one's teeth. One should not store one's food at one time to eat for another time. No. Just depend on the Lord. This is complete dependency on the Lord. The Lord will provide. And he does when you depend on him like this. And should not worship the Lord with flesh of the animals. So which means stop eating meat. If one can maintain these severe practices for the remainder of his life, then one can go to Maharloka planet. Which means, this is, the 9th verse says, the saintly Vanaprastha practicing severe penances and accepting only the bare necessities of life becomes so emaciated that he appears to be mere skin and bones. Thus, worshipping me through severe penances, he goes to the Maharloka planets and then directly achieves me. So, because of one who observes these regulations in Vanaprastha, like staying in the heat with blazing fire in winter, going into the cold, then he goes to Maharloka planet. But ultimate goal is to go back home, back to Godhead. But if someone is unsuccessful, like he dies in the Vanaprastha ashram itself, then still there is no harm because he goes to Maharloka planet. But the goal of Vanaprastha is not to go to Maharloka planet. That should not be misunderstood. The goal is to develop a taste for hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Because unless we do that, that taste does not come, we cannot go back home, back to Godhead. So Maharloka planet is for the unsuccessful Vanaprastha. So that when he goes there he can do more hearing and chanting. This is the consolation prize to go to Maharloka. So this is about Vanaprastha. But if someone is able to continue Vanaprastha life and then at the age of around 75 goes to sannyas ashram, the fourth quarter of life is meant for sannyas. One should develop complete detachment, Krishna says, from attaining residence on any planet. At that point, not even Maharloka, no consolation prize, directly back home, back to Godhead. Not even Brahmaloka, Tapaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Brahmaloka. None of these. This kind of material desire should go away. Because one understands that if I am looking for any pleasure in this material world, anywhere, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka, we will ultimately suffer. There may be more pleasure, but we will suffer ultimately. So one should take this sannyas in this spirit of renunciation, and with sannyas we should worship the Lord with sacrifice. We should, the sannyasi, when he goes to the forest, now all his possessions should be given in charity to the priests and establish the Lord within one's heart. For a sannyasi, any association of women or even sight of a woman is undesirable. More undesirable than taking poison, because Lord Chaitanya says, if we take poison, there is an antidote. And it may just take one life at worst. But if we develop material desires, association with women, and women for association with men, then it's worse than drinking poison, because the effect goes on for lifetimes, sometimes, unless we take the shelter of the holy names of the Lord. So text 14 says, the demigods create stumbling blocks on the path of the sannyasi by appearing before him in the shape of his former wife or other women and attractive objects. This man taking sannyas is going to surpass us and go back home, back to Godhead. Thus thinking, the demigods create the stumbling blocks. But the sannyasi should pay the demigods and their manifestations no heed. This is Krishna saying, this is the verse that I'm reading. Except in emergencies, the sannyasi should never wear more clothing than a loincloth or some simple covering over his loincloth. He should not carry anything more than a staff and water pot, kamandalu and danda. Give up all violence and then subdue his functions of body, mind, and speech. Text 17 says, one who has not accepted the three internal disciplines of avoiding useless speech, avoiding useless activities, and controlling the life air can never be considered a sannyasi merely because he's carrying bamboo rods. In this verse, the danda is the staff that it says. And danda means discipline. Why is danda there? To be disciplined. So danda is for the mind. Beat the mind. Say no. The mind will come back. Beat it. Fight it. That's real fight. Fighting the fear, the anger, the laziness, to be complacency. Fighting those is the real fight. That's why we need the danda. The Vaishnava sannyasis, but we have three dandi sannyasi, three bamboo rods, which means each of them signify body, mind, and words to the service of the Lord. So when we say dandavat pranam, which means in discipline, I am surrendering to you. Danda is discipline. So we are disciplining our mind, body, and speech. Karma, manasa, vacha. Karmana, manasa, vacha. These are the three danda. So each danda is the discipline of mind, body, and words. Then it says one should do anilayama, which means pranayama, regulating the life air. And just because we are carrying a danda does not mean that someone is a sannyasi unless he carries the internal danda of body, mind, and words dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, one may say, hey, here Krishna says a sannyasi should have a danda, kamandalu, loincloth, and nothing else. But we see in ISKCON, there are sannyasis wearing so many different things. There is a sannyas cloth also. Sometimes sannyasis wear glasses, sunglasses. What is all this? Actually, this kind of sannyas that was told earlier by Krishna, it's forbidden in Kali Yuga. Sannyas is forbidden in Kali Yuga. But ISKCON sannyas is for preaching. Just like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would also not just wear just loincloth. He would also have, like a lungi, and maybe on top he would not wear much. But as minimum as possible. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas not for the purpose of sannyas. He took sannyas for the purpose of preaching because people were looking up to him. If maybe Lord Chaitanya would have appeared today, he may have become maybe a movie star or maybe a sportsman or something, because people look up to them. And then he would have preached from that platform. At that time, people would respect and hear the Lord, the sannyasi. So then after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after some time, some generations, there were no sannyasis in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya until Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur came. He revived the Vaishnav sannyas, and he made the existence of Brahmachari ashram and sannyas ashram possible. When I was in the Brahmachari ashram 96 to 98 in Chowpatty, we were told that we should not be proud that we have joined the Brahmachari ashram, a Brahmachari, because we are able to maintain our Brahmacharya only because of the desire of Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Otherwise, in Kali Yuga, it is not possible at all. So one should, in this way, one should remain detached. We should understand the essence and the purpose behind these principles. And if a sannyasi is able to address and follow the purpose behind these principles, that's good enough. Krishna accepts it. One should remain detached, fixed on the self, travel alone to pure places like mountains, like rivers, like forests. And in this way, when he's engaged, he should remember the Supreme Personality. Stay in a place that is fearless, not very much populated. And then he should beg alms at 7 homes, chosen at random, without any discrimination. Oh, this person is rich, he'll give me something nice. Or a lot of people go here to beg alms. He's very charitable, let me go there. No, just 7 homes and we'll do this. Now, sometimes some people take up to sannyas in general, not in ISKCON, but in general, in the society, to just subsist living. Oh, if I wear some Bhagava Vastra, some saffron clothes, and go out and beg, people will give me, so I can just sustain myself. That laziness is not good. But the point of begging is to develop our dependence on the Lord. Srila Prabhupada would say, yes, we are also begging. Book distribution is begging. That's why we don't sell books. We give them spiritual knowledge, and in the true tradition of renunciation, we beg for some charity, whatever you feel. Vaisheshika Prabhu says, when you give a book, if someone asks, how much does it cost? You can ask, how much are you ready to pay? Some people give their whole lives. You can give whatever you want. So in this way, we are just begging, and that begging is giving us dependence on the Lord. When we go for book distribution, the whole purpose is dependence of the Lord. One time, one devotee was trying to distribute books here and there, so many, but no one was taking books for him. And then he felt that he was getting too much in the mode of passion and selling it in the mode of passion, showing books to people in the mode of passion. So then he just started chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He just started chanting and he started showing people books. And suddenly, books started flying out. It was as if just by raising his own consciousness, not telling anything, just chanting and showing people books, books want to go out on their own. He felt that he was standing in between the books going out. And as soon as he became transcendental, he took himself out of the equation. Boom, the book started going. So book distribution is to be it teaches us how to be fully dependent on Krishna. So you see many book distributors, they have very nice sadhana, and they are very much dependent on the Lord. And this is the practice we must do. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says that there are 3 ways for a sannyasi to collect alms. One is madhukara, another is asankalpita, another is prakpranita. Madhukari process is like imitating the bumblebee who goes and collects a tiny nectar from each flower, one flower, second flower, and then this way the saintly person also collects little bit from everyone. Then second is asankalpita, which is what is described in this verse, 7 homes. That is another way of collecting alms. Whatever 7 houses and whatever they give, without discrimination, you just select 7 houses spontaneously, without any planning. Then prakpranita. Prakpranita is the process where one establishes like regular donors and collects maintenance from just those donors. That's also possible. Sannyasi can do that. Generally, those who are like in Kuti Chaka, because there are 4 kinds of sannyasis: Kuti Chaka, Bahudaka, Parivrajakacharya, and Paramhamsa. Kuti Chaka sannyas means kuti. They have a kuti. They are sannyasi, but they are not at the Paramhamsa levels, highest level. They've just started. So they can. It's the initial stage of sannyas. His children or someone can make a kuti for him, like a meditation cottage for him. He will give up all the worldly affairs and he'll just sit inside the cottage. He'll try to remain free from lust, anger, greed, illusion. And he has Tridanda, Gayatri Mantra, water pot, all of that. He'll bathe regularly. He'll do all these things. But he is still just in the kuti. That's it. He's just there. Next is Bahudaka. He can go outside his kutir, but not outside the village. Just within that. The other is Parivrajakacharya. Now he starts going all over the world like Srila Prabhupada. Jayom Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakacharya. Ashtottara Shat Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Parivrajakacharya. Why is it called Parivrajakacharya? Because Srila Prabhupada was traveling everywhere, all over the world. And Paramhamsa, he's just a free bee. And Srila Prabhupada, Krishna explains the qualities of Paramhamsa. So then the sannyasi should accept whatever he gets from these different ways of collecting alms and then offer the bhoga to Krishna. Accept the Mahaprasadam, and when he does this, he will be away from all sense gratification and engage everything in the service of the Lord. So verse 19 says, Bahir jalashayam gatva tatropasprisya vagyata vibhajya pavitam shesham Bhunjita sheshamahritam. Taking the food gathered through begging, one should leave the populated areas and go to a reservoir of water in a secluded place. There, having taken a bath and washed one's hands thoroughly, one should distribute portions of foods to others who may request it. One should do this without speaking, which means one should honor prasad without speaking. Then, having thoroughly cleansed the remnants, one should eat everything on one's plate, leaving nothing for future consumption. So here a word is called vibhajya, meaning one should give something to materialistic people instead of arguing and quarreling from them. One should give them to avoid disturbance, then offer the remnants to Lord Vishnu. One should eat everything on the plate. Bahi, there is a word called bahi, which means one should not eat in a public place. So you got your bhoga, you offer, then don't eat in a public place. And vagyata, when you eat silently, no TV, no talking to others. Eat silently. Why? So you can meditate upon the Lord's mercy. Mahaprasade Govinde Namo Brahmani Vaishnave Swalpa Punyavatam Rajan Vishwasone Vajayate. Sharira Vidya Jal. We are meditating while honoring. This body is a lump of ignorance actually. Chodindriya Tahikal. These senses will lead to death. Jive Fele Vishaya Sagare. Taramadhya Jivati, these senses are pathways to hell, and in between there is the tongue. Taramadhya Jivati, Lobhamoy Sudurmati, Take Jeta Kathina Samsar. If we win over the senses, we win the world. But if we win the world and not the senses, we are still lost. So the biggest conqueror is one who has conquered his senses. That's why we call them Maharaj. Sannyasi as Maharaj, because they have conquered their senses, because they are engaging their senses. So one should eat silently, meditating on the Lord's mercy. Krishna bara dayamoy koribare jivajay. Krishna is so merciful. Swaprasad annadilabhai. He's giving his mercy to me. He's so merciful. Look, here also, we are first telling how we are situated, how bad our situation is. We first meditate on how our situation is so lowly. And then we ask for mercy, because then we can appreciate it. Then we beg out of utter dependence and gratefulness to Krishna. Krishna Bharadayamai, so grateful we are. Next verse says, Vanaprastha padeshu abhikshnam bhaikshamachare samsiddhyatyashva asammoha shuddha sattva shilandhasa. One in the Vanaprastha order of life should always practice taking charity from others, for one is thereby freed from illusion and quickly becomes perfect in spiritual life. Indeed, one who subsists on food grains obtained in such a humble manner purifies his existence. So this process of begging is not just a rule or regulation. If we sustain ourselves with this begging, that purifies our existence, Krishna says. If one lacks knowledge and renunciation, or continues to be troubled by the unconquered six enemies, which is the five senses, headed by lust, anger, pride, greed, illusion, and envy. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya. And all the senses. Then, and if someone is only taking sannyas so that he can be maintained for his livelihood by the society, then the result of such a sannyas is to kill, is like killing one's soul. Then Krishna explains about Paramhamsa, who are the topmost sannyasis. Paramhamsa is not under the control of any injunctions and prohibitions. He is a pure devotee. He's detached from sense gratification. He's completely free from this desire of even Kanaka Kamini Pratishtha. Even liberation he does not want. He's like a simple child. He's free from this concepts of pride and insult. For a small child, if you insult him, they don't mind. They just go ahead as if they don't know what these I don't know what these people are saying, and they're just continuing in their own way. They don't take it too hard to their ego. If they fall, they just get up, look here and there, and start walking. They're not afraid of falling. But the elders sometimes put fear of falling in their minds. The child in innocence, pride, insult is nothing for them. So Paramhamsa is like that. The Paramhamsa is very competent, but he wanders around like as if he's a dull person and engages himself in incoherent speech like a fool, like Jadabharat. That is the stage of Paramhamsa. Just like an example is given, one time Radha Govinda Maharaj gave this example. If we are driving a car or anything on the road, then we have to follow the signals. Otherwise, we are caught, right? We have to follow the green signal or the red signal. We have to stop, the stop sign, we have to stop and then go after some time. All these things we have to follow. But someone who is going above that road in a plane, the plane doesn't have to follow the signals. He's also going, in the jurisdiction of that same road. Similarly, for devotees who are practicing, we must follow these rules and regulations. But one who has achieved the Paramhamsa status, he doesn't have to really follow these rules and regulations. But they do to set an example. That is a different thing. But they don't need to. And we should not judge, they are not following, so I should also not follow. Or that, I'm not following because I'm a Paramhamsa. No, these are all excuses. A true Paramhamsa, he doesn't really need to follow all these. Krishna himself is saying he's not under the control of injunctions and prohibitions. One such example that we have is of Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, we can keep saying about who's a Paramhamsa, what does he do, what are his qualities. But if we just hear about Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, who Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, actually Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj was a Gaudiya Vaishnava sadhu. He lived in Swarupganj in Navadvip near Bhakti Vinod Thakur's place. And he was present at the time of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur respected him so much. He used to make sure that Vamsidas Babaji is provided with grains and all the facilities by Gaudiya Math brahmacharis. But Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj was free soul. He was Paramhamsa. He was not really bothered about it. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was bothered about him. Actually, Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj he was from Bangladesh, and before the partition of India, when Bangladesh didn't exist, it was called East Bengal and West Bengal. He came from East Bengal to West Bengal, Navadvip, to experience Lord Chaitanya's mercy. His name previously was Bhairava, and his father's name was Sanatana Malo-Brahma. So he lived as a total recluse, completely away from the hustle and bustle of the town, in a solitary place in the bank of Ganga near the Baral Ghat. In Navadvip, there is Baral Ghat, the boat goes there. He used to live there. And he was to live like just a mad or a crazy person. Only thing he had was an old kopin. He had a karanga and kanta. So he would just live in his world of his own. He had his deities, Gaur Gadadhar deities, Nitai, Radha Krishna, and Gopal deity. And to serve them, he would just have two pots, two brass pots, some earthen pots, glass cups, panchapatra, bell, conch shell, all these things just for worshipping and offering to his deities. Nothing for himself, just a kopin, kangan, and a kanta. That's all he had. And he would just all day just serve them and talk with them. In the morning, he would go out to collect some flowers from his kuti. He would go for some bhiksha. Then he would come back to his kutia about noon. He would make garlands from those flowers and then offer it to his 6 deities. Then he would cut vegetable, wash each vegetable so many different times. Then he would clean rice. He'll examine each rice. If he find any grain, he would remove like husk. Slowly, he would do these things. He would just contemplate on the Leela of Radha and Krishna, Gaur Nitai, singing to them, talking to them while he's like, examining the grain of rice. He would be talking to them like family members. And then he would offer bhoga once a day, that too in the night, because he would do things so slowly and contemplating and like that. By the time he would finish cooking, going to get donations and bhiksha, flowers, making garland, all of that, the time would just go away. But for him, morning, evening, day, night had no meaning. One day, so he was very attached to his deities. But something amazing happened one day. There was a lady who was selling fish. She approached Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. And somehow Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj felt that he's having this desire to eat fish. And he got really, really mad. He was like, how could this happen? How could this happen? I've surrendered my life to Radha Krishna. I'm under their protection. And how could this thing happen? Why are you not protecting me? He started shouting at Radha Krishna and stormed out of the bhajan kuti. He didn't accept it. But just the thought that he could have, just like Madhavendra Puri. When Madhavendra Puri, he went to Kshirachor Gopinath temple in Ramuna. When it was being offered, he felt, I wish I could taste how this kheer is so that I can make it for my Gopal in Vrindavan. But just that thought made him sushtu nishti vanamcha. He just felt spitting at himself. What? The Lord is honoring and I am thinking of tasting it, even though he was wanting to taste for the benefit of Gopal, service of Gopal. But still he held himself to such high standards. These pure devotees, we should understand this. Their heart is so pure. Even if a thought of a possible sense gratification that they are not thinking of, but that happens generally in the world, comes to their mind, they find it so filthy. Just like if a place is white, clean, and there is a little bit dirt there, immediately it's seen. If it's all a dustbin somewhere and you put the same amount of dirt there, it's not seen. So sometimes our hearts are full of all these many, many dirty things. And if a thought of sense gratification comes, we think, oh, this is nothing compared to what other anarthas I have. But their heart is so pure that just the thought of, they are not even thinking of sense gratification, but the thought of the possibility of sense gratification just agitates them. So his agitation, in one sense, took the form of shouting at the deities. How could you let this happen? This was his relationship with the deities. And then everyone went. So he went, and then he did something. Now this is a Paramhamsa, okay? We should not imitate that. And we will not be able to understand that as well. He took his deities out, he tied by rope and threw them in the Ganga. But he held the rope with his foot so that, deities don't go away, because he's going to pull them back. Then one man inquired, "Why are you doing this?" And Babaji Maharaj took a stone and threw at him. "Oh, why are you asking?" Now, this news went to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur just told his disciples, "Don't associate with Babaji Maharaj." And then he called them again. He said, "Some of you may be thinking that I asked you to not visit Babaji Maharaj because you think he's in Maya. No. I am preventing you to visit him again, because you will not understand his bhava and you will only commit offenses. So better stay away from him." So later, when that one brahmachari visited, again Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj threw a stone. But Babaji Maharaj and said, "You want to please me? You don't come here again." So this is the stage that Krishna is explaining about Paramhamsa. He would never lock his door, Babaji Maharaj. If the owner of the house would not keep a watch, he would say, "Why should I lock the door?" Radha Krishna, Gaur Nitai, they are the owner of the house. If anything happens, it's their fault. They have to take care. Why should I take care? This lock has 3 keys, he would say. All of them, 3 boys. Gaura, 1 key is with Gaura, 1 is with Nitai, 1 is with Gadadhar. So he would say, "I've given the keys to them." He made keys, whatever, and he put it on their lotus feet. And then he says, "Now I'm free from anxiety. Now it's not mine. Now I've given them the keys, they'll take care." So one time a cow came and just completely ransacked. So he got angry with the boys, the 3 boys, Gaura, Nitai and Gadadhar. And if someone would steal something from the kutir, he would say, "Well, you know what? I think Gaura allowed it because he has a soft corner for the Brajbas, for the Nadiabasis, the Dhamvasis." So, but anyway, for me, I'm an outsider. So what should I do? Anyway, he went out, looked for the thief. He came back to the kutir. He was scolding Gaura. "Who did you give this necklace? Who did you give?" 2 hours he was scolding Gauranga. And then evening, Lord Gauranga inspired him and gave a hint. And he immediately went to the house of the thief. And the thief did not behave properly with him. So then he said, "How could Gaura tolerate this?" But then, because of this offense, the thief, he soon died, and all the other members of his family also died soon. So then, one time also, Babaji Maharaj, he had to punish Gaur Nitai for saying, "These pots got stolen, it's your fault. How can it happen? You are the supreme controller. If you don't want, why? So I will punish you." So Babaji Maharaj scolded them, all 3 boys. Did not give, said, "Aaj ki kichu pavena." He did not give him anything to eat. And then this punishment had its effect. Next day, someone came quietly and delivered the pots that they had stolen. And then Babaji Maharaj said, "This small pot, this is Nitai. He'll be fed today. If Gaura wants to eat, he also bring his pot." That thief did not give all the pots, just 1 small pot. So he said, "Okay, so Nitai has brought his pot. Now Gaura and Gadadhar, you have to get your own pots. Otherwise, I cannot." And he offered only to Nitai, no one else. And you could see Gaura, so he was punishing Gaura and he's saying, Gaura made a long face. Look, your face is so long. Get your pot, I'll cook for you." So then another man came and delivered the other pot. He's not angry at the thief. He's angry at Gaur Nitai and Gadadhar. And they are arranging for the pots to come back. Then again, Babaji Maharaj cooked in that pot, offered to Gaura. Then when Gaur Nitai, when he offered to all of them, he was crying with tears in his eyes. Do I ever want to punish you? But both of you are so naughty. You always harass me. I've become so old I cannot beat you. What can I do? So I have to punish you. But I don't want to. He would this was his bhava. Just like his children, he would consider them. He traveled to so many different places. And then in 1941, Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, he left Navadvip. He headed for Sri Vrindavan Dham. He walked. He first went to Katwa. He stayed for 2 days near the railway station. Then went to Bhagalpur, again Gaya, Falgu River, so many different places. He also went to the Dashashwamedh Ghat near Banaras for 3 days. 3 days in Ayodhya. This is how he went from Navadvip to Vrindavan. On the way, he went to all these holy places, to Sarayu, and then to Prayag, to Vishram Ghat. Then he reached Vishram Ghat in Mathura, and we went to Vamsibat tree in Bhandiravan. For 8 days he stayed there, and then Govinda Dev temple, Kalia Dahan, near this Tamal tree that was there. He went to Surya Kund in Nandagram, Pavan Sarovar, and then 9 days again Vamsivat Ghat he stayed. So wherever he went, he would just remain completely absorbed in chanting the holy names and meditating on Krishna's pastimes. And after 3 months, like this, he returned to Navadvip Dham. And some devotees also went with him. They said when he was walking through Vrajamandala, he would sometimes sing song on Krishna's Leela. Sometimes he would glorify Navadvip Dham and Sri Vrindavan Dham. He would laugh sometimes madly, sometimes just he would so-called babble incoherently, and many times he would just be silent, meditating and walking. These are the qualities of a Paramhamsa, just very childlike. Whenever he would visit a temple, he would mutter confidentially something to them, talk to them, and he then, even in Navadvip, he did some Navadvip Mandal Parikrama. He went to Ambika Kalna, he went to Bhadra, Khurda, Purushottam, so many different places. Some Gaudiya Math sannyasis, sadhus, they rendered a lot of service to him. And one time, he thought, I have the desire to obtain the Supreme Lord. How can I get Bhagavan? So this person, he used to come to Babaji Maharaj and ask this question. Finally, one day he approached Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj directly. So Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj said, what do you want? Man said, I want to see Bhagavan. So Babaji Maharaj said only one word, one sentence. You want to see Bhagavan? Then weep for him. Kante hobe. So then after several years, Babaji Maharaj left this world. But Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very, very respectful to Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. In fact, I think Bhakti Vikas Maharaj has written a book on the pastimes of Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. And we can see how the qualities of a Paramhamsa as described in Srimad Bhagavatam by Krishna. So, continuing, Krishna explains that this Paramhamsa, he avoids acting as an enemy. He does not indulge in any argument with anyone because he sees Supreme Personality of Godhead in everyone. Just like Babaji Maharaj, he saw Gaur Nitai as the Supreme Controller. He would not really be bothered about the thieves. He just accepts whatever good food, bad food comes. He's not joyful when he finds something, does not become depressed when he cannot find anything. And in this way, the perceptions of dualities is not there. And such a person, when he leaves this body, he gets a liberation known as sarishti, which means one becomes equal in opulence with the Lord. Sarishti. Then Krishna explains about the spiritual master. One should take shelter of the spiritual master. If you want your best interest, your mind should be filled with faith, free from enviousness, fixed in devotion. The spiritual master, the disciple must serve the spiritual master. Brahmachari gurukule vasandanto gururhitam, which means a brahmachari stays in the gurukul. Why? Vasandanto gururhitam, for the benefit of the spiritual master. So for the brahmachari, prime duty is to serve the spiritual master. In short, he tells about brahmachari. In short, he tells about grihastas. Grihastas basically are for protection of the rest of the ashram. He protects as a sacrifice. Then for vanaprastha, the duty is austerity. For sannyasi, the duty is self-control and non-violence. And everyone should have celibacy. And penance, cleanliness, satisfaction, friendship to all living entities. And in this way, we can have supreme devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then we come to chapter 19, the final chapter for today, the perfection of spiritual knowledge. Just like Krishna described the final chapter, 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said to Uddhava here that someone who is actually wise, who knows the truth of the self and possesses transcendental insight, rejects the world of dualities and so-called knowledge meant for facilitating the enjoyment. He instead engages himself in trying to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all. This is pure Bhakti Yoga. To satisfy the Supreme, that is Bhakti Yoga. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. That is the greatest self-respect, self-preservation. Transcendental knowledge is greater than ordinary pious activities, as chanting mantras, but pure devotional service is greater than knowledge. Bhakti is higher than knowledge. After this, Krishna was requested by Uddhava, please describe in full detail this pure transcendental knowledge and devotional service. So Krishna then described this devotional service. What is pure transcendental knowledge? What is devotional service? And he repeated the instructions that Bhishma Dev gave on these topics to Yudhishthir on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So Krishna is also repeating the instructions of his own devotees. He said, yes, Bhishma Dev gave it to Yudhishthir. He spoke all of this. Then after that, Uddhava asked about yama, niyama, all the other practices of yoga, and Krishna explained to him different kinds of 12 kinds of yama, which means controlling, and 12 kinds of niyama, beginning with bodily cleanliness. So with this, the chapter ends, and we'll end for today. If there are any questions or comments, we can take now. We will also tell you in the meantime about the quiz. But thank you, Keshavi Mataji and Venkatapati Prabhu. Thank you, Ma, Baba, Gandharvika, Gopi Mataji. Thank you so much for joining. Sudesh Prabhu, Rajeshwari Mataji. Thank you, Soumya Mataji, Gaur Bhakta Brunda Prabhu. Lalita Angi Mataji, Lalita Kartikeyan, Swati Mataji, Anju Mataji, thank you for joining today. before I thank the Facebook, we have the quiz for today. There are 5 questions. 1. Who are elevated to the Maharloka planet? Second, what is the meaning of sannyas in ISKCON according to Srila Prabhupada? Third, what are the 3 processes of sustenance as described by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur? What are the 4 kinds of sannyasis? Fifth, what is the symptoms of a Paramhamsa according to Krishna? So thank you, Narsimha Gaura Hari Prabhu, for joining today, Divyangi Mataji and Prem Vikas Prabhu, Supriya Mataji and Appaji Prabhu, Radha Padhavi Mataji, thank you, Surya A. Varun, Hare Krishna bro, Hare Krishna. Good to see you, Varun, or read you. Shanti Mataji, Hare Krishna. If there are any other questions or comments, we can take now. All right. Yeah, we got a comment. Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Today's Paramahamsa story was very enlivening. But I'd like to request you, please do not judge Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj's pastimes with mundane eyes. Don't even try judging, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. Otherwise, we'll commit offenses to him. They are not to set example, because Paramhamsas, Parivrajikacharya sannyasis set examples. Paramhamsa sannyasis are above the signals. They are not on the road. They are flying. So those rules, regulations don't restrict them. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.